Reckoner, you know, and attack for 5 that turn. So slightly a little more aggressive version of Naya than we've seen in the past, but again, he's got the staples. He's got 4 Reckoner, 4 Smiter, 4 Voice of Resurgence, 4 Absent Pilgrims. So let's see if he's able to beat the Aristocrats, which is traditionally kind of a tough matchup for Naya.
Yeah, I would think it'd be pretty tough since the threats are so durable, and can kind of get those synergies online, and they can't really break them up very well. But Jamie's off to a pretty good start here with an Avacyn's Pilgrim, while VanMeter with just a Clifftop Retreat and going to pass the turn back.
Yeah, thankfully VanMeter's list is similar to BBD's list, and he doesn't have any copies of Skarsgård High Priest, which is one of the more troublesome cards for Naya to deal with.
You see an Experiment 1 here and just passing the turn back, so no second land. You see Miller's hand. He does have another Experiment 1, a Searing Spear, some other things to do there, but he is missing lands, and Naya, which is a deck that typically does have a decent amount of lands in there. He's got 23 in his deck. His VanMeter's going to play a Blood Crypt tapped and a Doomed Traveler before passing the turn back. And it looks like Miller has drawn a land in Sacred Foundry. Going to go down to 16.
Looks like we're going to see maybe a Boros Reckoner come into play now and boost up the power for the Experiment 1.
I think he's deciding if he wants to play Experiment 1 and maybe, certainly not Spear that Doom Traveler. I don't think that'd be very good, but he could get that Experiment. He can get the Experiment 1 down, represent Spear for the following turn to take care of the next threat, and then Reckoner can grow both Experiment 1s. But it looks like he's just going to go with the Minotaur Wizard, grow the Experiment 1 into a 2/2, and get into the red zone that way.
Yeah, because not playing it, just playing another Experiment 1 means he's just giving up an attack this turn to try to get a better attack next turn.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with that is if VanMeter draws a Tragic Slip or a removal spell for the Avacyn Pilgrim, you can't even guarantee that you get that Reckoner into play. So
sure.
I think the safe route is to just get that Reckoner in play, especially since you have another one.
Yep.
So just try to put a little pressure out there.
So in for 2 comes Miller. VanMeter may block. It looks like he's at least considering the option here of blocking.
He's got a Blood Artist, so maybe he's thinking he can get a little more value out of that block later on. But he also has a Sorin, so maybe he wants to start attacking with that flyer. But yeah, it looks like he's just going to take it now. And maybe we'll see a Blood Artist come down this turn.
See Tragic Slip the draw for the
Tragic
turn.
Slip, so pretty good draw. It'll give him a way to actually deal with the Boros Reckoner. Looks like he does have a 3rd mana and another Blood Crypt. So he can play Blood Artist, pass the turn back. Then he can block with the Doom Traveler and then Tragic Slip the Boros Reckoner.
Okay, sure.
He'll take 3, but he'll gain a life back from the.
Looks like he's another Doom Traveler. Okay, so that's actually a pretty good turn for him.
Yeah, so that's pretty good too because now he's gonna be able to block if he chooses. Both creatures will die. VanMeter will take 1 from the Reckoner. Then he can Tragic Slip will get turned on, and if he wants, he can untap, play a Sorin, and try to attack in the air with 2 Spirit tokens for giving himself an emblem.
See, Miller did draw on the land. He's got Searing Spear, Boros Reckoner, Experiment 1, and a Sacred Foundry in his hand. So how he wants to navigate these turns is going to be interesting. Going to start by playing a land. Don't know if it's going to be tapped or untapped, but it feels like it's coming to play untapped right now.
Yeah, I think I like Experiment 1, then playing a land and getting a Reckoner out there to grow both your Experiment 1s.
So Experiment 1 is where he's going to start. Sacred Foundry going to come in and going to knock Miller down to 14. Looks like he's going to take the route that you suggested, 2nd Boros Reckoner. And Evolve Trigger is going to go onto the stack. Miller waiting here patiently to see if VanMeter's going to have a response or not.
Yeah, again, a creature hasn't died yet, so he can't really Tragic Slip the Reckoner or the Experiment 1 that's already evolved.
So evolution will occur. Experiment 1s will grow. And we'll see what kind of attacks Miller wants to make this turn and how VanMeter wants to block with those Doom Travelers, because I think they are going to be on blocking duty in some fashion.
Yeah, if you're going to... I think if you're VanMeter, you probably just double block.
So 1 on the Reckoner,
1 on the Reckoner, 1 the Experiment 1.
Okay. I can certainly see an argument, too, for just putting a Doom Traveler in front of the Experiment 1, taking 3, and then slipping. So I'm interested to see what he's going to do.
I don't know if he wants to get that low, though, given the army that Jamie has in play. But it looks like, looks like that's what he's going to do. He's going to take your line and just get a token here. I think had Jamie not committed 2 more creatures to the board, VanMeter might have been willing to just lose both his guys to trade up for spirits and try to go more aggressive because Jamie is at 14.
Yep.
But again, Jamie just committed too many creatures to the board this turn, so I think VanMeter has to rethink his strategy.
So there is a Tragic Slip with Morbid. Going to take down one of those Boros Reckoners, one that's untapped, of course. So if he does want to attack, He can certainly do that. You see VanMeter going to draw his card for the turn. Cartel Aristocrat to draw. He's got that Sorin that you mentioned. He has his Zathrid Necromancer as well. I think he's got another Doom Traveler hanging out too. So looks like what he doesn't have, though, is a 4th land.
So Lingering Soul is going to buy him some more time. Jamie doesn't really have a lot of cards, but looks like Necromancer is going to come down, which is, again, another good way to gum up the ground. However, he still has to deal with that Reckoner. So the Reckoner... I'd imagine Reckoner is going to get double blocked by Necromancer or Doom Traveler, but even that, I mean...
Yeah, first strike
ability just wrecks it. So the Reckoner is just going to be a problematic card for him.
Sacred Foundry to draw for Miller, so a couple of those in a row. Does have Searing Spear left over in his hand. Searing Spear can make any double or triple blocks look pretty poor. But I think, VanMeter, what he's just trying to do now is just preserve his life total. There's going to be a lot of blocking going on over the next couple of turns for VanMeter, just so he can go off the ground. He's going to get a bunch of extra blockers from Necromancer and Doom Traveler dying, and then maybe Sorin can actually eventually take over this game. But for right now, his goal, because he's on the back foot, is just not to die and hopefully make some trades, be them favorable or unfavorable, to stay alive.
Yeah. From Jamie's side, you have to figure... My only good attack really is Experiment 1 with 2 +1/+1 counters and the Boros Reckoner.
Searing Spear is going to take down the Necromancer right away. Got to remember that the zombie token does come into play tapped, so it cannot block. I mean, there's a decent chance we'll see a Sam Black come into play here.
Yeah, Sam Black token, otherwise known as a 2/2 zombie, comes into play, and now we can see Jamie could choose to attack with everything now.
Yeah, I think an attack with everything is a pretty good attack. And he's just trying to push through damage here so that Chris can never get set up. How are you going to block in this situation if you're Chris, since, we have Chris's hand here?
At this point...
And he doesn't really have to worry about anything because there's only a stomping ground. Also doesn't worry about Rampage or anything like that, outside of course, the Boros Reckoner getting first strike.
I think you probably want to just kill a creature here, so I think maybe you want to just double block the Experiment 1. It looks like he's just going to try to soak up as much damage here. You see, the thing here is, though, you have a Cartel Aristocrat in your hand. You also have a Lingering Souls still in your hand, so I don't know. I think you want to just try to kill as many creatures as you can, especially with Jamie only have 1 card left in his hand. But it looks like he decides to just soak up a little damage there. Just kills an Avacyn Pilgrim, but, again, Avacyn Pilgrim's not a real threat.
Miller plays his last card. That's Sacred Foundry tapped and passed the turn back. So VanMeter knows he has nothing to worry about except for the top of Miller's deck. He draws Nob's deck, Ghost Council for the turn. Something that he can work towards if he's able to peel off running lands, one of which is going to have to tap for white mana. But that plan is pretty far away at this point.
So I think I like Lingering Souls here. Gives him a lot more options next turn, especially if he draws a land. So Lingering Souls tokens are going to come into play. So he has 5 power worth of blockers here, which can do some damage against those Experiment 1s. So let's see what Jamie decides to do, and if he draws something. A Rampager would be huge. Rampager is probably the best draw you can have here.
Just looking for a non-land card, really. I mean, most of his draws are actually pretty good right now. Miller going to draw a card.
Yeah, any non-land card, really. Domri Red would be great.
Yeah, it'd be quite good right now. Look, I mean, we're looking at his deck list. Most of his draws right now are actually fantastic. Thundermaw being one of the poorer ones, but I mean, if he draws land, Thundermaw's great again. So
yeah, it's really any non-land card. So Jamie deciding what he wants to do here. I'm not sure what card he drew for the turn, but he doesn't have necessarily any bad attacks. Obviously, Boros Reckoner comes. I think you just swing in with everything.
I do too.
Don't really see a reason not to. Maybe you want to hold back the 1 Experimental 1, but
he's a trade with the zombie token, which I don't think is the best trade in the world. He's got the 2/2 Experiment 1 that would trade with the Sam Black token. If he wants to make that trade, it looks like he's going to hold that one back, waiting for Evolution to take place with it on a future turn. See Miller kind of consult the card in his hand as well.
The only thing I would have maybe considered... Yeah, I like this play. You attack first. The only thing I could consider is maybe putting a Regeneration Shield in my Experiment 1, then playing the Voice to grow it again, and then attacking, so that Chris can't really triple block to try to kill it. But either way, if Chris does try to triple block, Jamie can still put a shield on his guy and then kill one of the tokens. So looks like that's what's going to happen.
He's just shoving in there, yeah.
I would definitely remove 2+1/+1 counters to put a shield on my Experiment 1.
Sure.
And then you're going to grow it anyway with the Experiment 1, so why not? Wow.
He's going to let it die.
So he just wants to kill 2 guys, so interesting.
So VanMeter's going to go down to 6 now. Looks like he's got the Voice of Resurgence that you mentioned.
Yep.
So there's your Elemental, passing the turn back. VanMeter still looking for a 4th land, preferably one that does come into play untapped. He draws a Zathir Necromancer, so that's not land number 4. And again, his deck has 25 lands in it. And this is one of the problems with the Aristocrats, and you probably know this from playing it. Its mana draws can be very inconsistent. Some games you float out, sometimes you don't draw enough, and it's pretty rare that you have color issues, but it can happen.
Yeah, that was one of the frustrating things for me when I was playing this deck, is that the games where you're going along perfectly and things are going according to plan seem great, but there are a lot of games where I just kept feeling like I was getting unlucky, and that just can't happen over and over and over again without you thinking there's something wrong with this deck, like fundamentally. And I just think that there's too many different angles that you're trying to go after, and sometimes you just don't draw what you need. Like, for instance, VanMeter's drawing an Abzarat here. He's got the Sorin in his hand. Don't really work out with what he's trying to do here. But again, I think I still like the Aristocrats. I just think that, particularly against decks that have a lot of creatures and they're attacking you, it can get tricky because you can gum up the board to a degree, but all their creatures are just so much better than your creatures in general. And if you don't have a sacrifice outlet, it's much worse. So obviously, if VanMeter started the game with our Cartel Aristocrat in play, the whole game is a much different situation.
Of course.
You're really relying on having some sort of sacrifice outlet.
So you see VanMeter play Cartel Aristocrat, passes the turn back. Miller drew his card for the turn, which was a Rootbound Crag, so that one doesn't do very much here. He can try to bluff a Gorkland Rampager or a Searing Spear or something of that nature, and that's what it looks like he's going to attempt to do, is Miller. So everything's going to come into the red zone. And we'll see how VanMeter wants to navigate his blocks. Wouldn't be surprised to see a Spirit Token get in front of that Reckoner, sack it before damage, so there's no trigger there. I think that's the easy block. But what else does he want to do? That's the question.
I think he wants to take out the Experiment 1 and do exactly what he said. He can give his Cartel Aristocrat pro green, so it'll take out the Experiment 1, and Boros Reckoner won't trigger. And now he's in a good place because granted he takes 2, drops to 4, but he still has the Blood Artist in hand. So if he does draw a 4th land, he can flashback Lingering Souls and then get a Blood Artist in play and give himself a little more breathing room.
Okay.
Because he basically has to be in a position where he's just constantly blocking the Reckoner and sacrificing it. Or at least until he gets enough of a life cushion from the Blood Artist where it will matter. Then, if he ever gets to 5-man, gets that Abzad in play, suddenly everything's easy.
That's when things turn.
So you see, just look how much better VanMeter's deck is once he gets that Cartel Aristocrat in play. It's night and day. And that was one of the frustrating things for me, is when I didn't have an Aristocrat in play, the deck is just not very efficient.
What's the name of the deck?
The Aristocrat.
Oh, okay.
That makes a lot of sense. I never thought of it that way. You make a good point.
Thank you. I'll be here all weekend, trust me.
So VanMeter drops the 4 from that attack because Voice of Resurgence was not blocked, and Jamie chooses not to play the land in his hand and just passes back.
He needs a land. Sacred Foundry. That is a land.
I think it's okay. I think he's fine with it. I mean, obviously he's exposing himself a little bit to Searing Spear. He doesn't have to play it untapped. He can afford to play it tapped and just flashback Lingering Souls, and he'll still have 2 blockers. So he can do the exact same thing he did last turn. Cartel Aristocrat blocks Voice of Resurgence. It will kill it. He'll get a token, but still, you can do the exact same thing he did last turn. He does not need to expose himself to Searing Spear.
Could play Zathir Necromancer this turn too and be perfectly fine. Like, play Zathir Necromancer, play the land tapped and pass the turn back. I don't think that's unreasonable. It looks like he's going to flashback Lingering Souls. Only because, and the reason I think that's okay is because you use all of your mana, and then like the next turn, if you don't draw a land, you can use all your mana again and again and again. So mana efficiency is certainly a thing at this point, but he's going to go down.
Oh, so he is going for the Blood Artist.
Okay, all right.
And the interesting thing about that is, if you're going to go for this strategy, I think you have to cast Blood Artist first.
Okay.
And then take 2, because if he has Searing Spear in response to Blood Artist, you can't even gain life to get out of it.
Yeah, you make a good point.
Because in response, you could at least sack the token and sack your Blood Artist, go up to 2, and you at least don't lose to Searing Spear. So I think if you're going to go for this strategy, you have to cast Blood Artist first. But either way, VanMeter dodges a Searing Spear, and Jamie is now in a very difficult position.
Yeah, we know that VanMeter needs to keep. Now he needs to dodge Thundermaw Hellkites for the duration. Well, thankfully for him, Miller only plays 2 of them, or the normal most lists that people are accustomed to play 4. Here comes Reckoner. This is kind of a. This is great for VanMeter because that attack. Take a look at the body language too.
Yeah.
That's the big deal. This is I drew something that's not relevant again. Maybe back-to-back draws now for Miller Ben Bricks. VanMeter's gonna make the block that we've already seen him make prior, which is block the Spirit Token, sacrifice the Aristocrat, Blood Artist trigger. Gonna go up to 3. Miller's gonna go down to 12. But the body language, I think, is the huge thing there. Because if you're VanMeter, like you see an attack like that where he kind of draws a little bit of frustration, attacks with just the Reckoner, all right, things are good. Like he doesn't have anything.
I think. Oh wow, is that a Gather the Townsfolk?
Oh wow, you don't ever see this happen.
So I agree with you. I think that the body language there is a clear giveaway that Jamie just doesn't have anything going on. VanMeter, I think, can play this turn, having perfect information. So the question is, does he play Sorin, or does he try to just play a little more cautiously and just get that Gather the Townsfolk out there?
It's really interesting too because it's very easy for us here in the booth and you guys at home to just say, just play the Gather the Townsfolk. Does he know that it makes 5 tokens right now? It's so rare for Gather the Townsfolk to actually make 5 creatures. Does he realize that it makes 5 creatures? Because it looks like he's tapping 4 mana for Sorin right now. Now he's thinking it over.
He's got to play around Thundermaw. I think you need to cast Gather because Gather will generate 5 guys, which can gain you 5 life to counteract any Thundermaw.
Mm-hmm. And he may just come. You see the smile on his face. I think he may have just came to the realization, oh baby, 5 guys for 2 mana. Don't mind if I do.
Yeah. if you just play Sorin, give yourself a wolf token, or a vampire token, or even give yourself an emblem. I don't think it's enough because you're exposing yourself to Thundermaw.
Yep. And you know also as well that Jamie does have the 5 mana, because 5 mana is in play, obviously.
Yeah. But
that's like the flashpoint where now you know that Thundermaw is a possibility, where you don't know if he was holding Thundermaws and hadn't quite gotten there. It's very clear he's not holding Thundermaws. You see the soldier tokens are going to come in to play, or the human tokens, for Gather the Townsfolk. So 5 guys are going to be made because of Fateful Hour. You see VanMeter's going to do some math now, too, because he might actually also be able to start attacking now.
Well, now I definitely attack with Lingering Souls token. There's no reason not to attack with the Lingering Souls token. Especially because if he has a Thundermaw, they're going to die anyway. Mm-hmm. So I might as well just get some damage in there.
You could actually start trying to turn a corner and actually close the game out. And, 2 turns ago, he was never in that situation. So now you want to cut Miller's draw steps if you can.
Especially because you have the Necromancer in your hand.
Yep.
So you can give your Cartel Aristocrat protection from white next turn. So it can attack through. So that's another guaranteed 2 damage. Not to mention the Blood Artist.
Yeah, not only that, those are human tokens. With the Necromancer, you actually use to fireball them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if VanMeter makes it out of this turn alive, Miller will die. Because every human he sacrifices gives him a zombie. So basically every human represents 2 points of damage.
Yeah.
2 points of life loss, drain, however you want to say it. You see Miller's, with that Rootbound Crag he's had in his hand for a very long time, draws a Strangerroot Geist, which is of very little help at this point.
So you can see once VanMeter got that Cartel Aristocrat in play, his deck was able to start functioning again, and it changed everything. Yep. Suddenly, that Boros Reckoner, if that Aristocrat wasn't in play, that Reckoner would have been pinging VanMeter's life total and ended the game a couple turns ago. So that Cartel Aristocrat just changed the total board position, and now VanMeter is in a position where he's probably going to win next turn.
And you see, one of the things that we had watched a little bit earlier, for you guys that didn't join us round 1 or haven't seen the replay, is when Brian Bronwyn was playing in round 1, where he was trying to bluff a Tragic Slip against his opponent. We knew, as you guys did at home, that he didn't have Tragic Slip in his hand, but he tried to sell it the best he could. Even though he was dead to a very large Olivia Valdarin, he was trying to sell it the best he could, get his opponent to make some sort of mistake or an error in judgment or anything. Whereas you can see here for Jimmy Miller's side, especially last turn, not so much this turn, but last turn, just the frustration that set in, which is just the kind of the dead giveaway that, okay, I don't have anything, perceived this game as slipping away from me where I was in a very good spot after turn 3 or turn 4. And, a player of VanMeter's skill level is going to kind of pick up and pounce on that and just try and just use it to his advantage.
And I agree with you. I also think, in fairness, I think given Jamie's deck and the number of cards in his hand, I think it's VanMeter was probably going to be able to get a read on him regardless of his body language or, his actions. But I agree with you. I think you have to be very cognizant of, how you're acting every time you draw a card, the way you're slumped over, because everything you're doing is giving some information to your opponent, and the more information they have, the better plays they're going to be able to make. And part of this game is trying to get an edge in terms of making sure that you make less mistakes than your opponent. And if you're giving them perfect information, then the chances are they're going to make less mistakes than you are. So, again, I don't think Jamie gave away too much because I think VanMeter wouldn't have been able to figure it out anyway. But again, always be cognizant of everything that you're doing during a match. Don't slump over. Don't resign yourself to just whatever. I'll just attack. Make sure you're cognizant of what you're doing because you don't want to give anything away to your opponent.
You see Miller, after he attacks with the Boros Reckoner, VanMeter makes the same block he's made for multiple turns, which is block with a token, sacrifice it to the Cartel Aristocrat, drain and brain with Blood Artist, and after that, Miller didn't even wait to go to VanMeter's turn, he just conceded the game. So we're going to move on to a second game here between the Aristocrats and Domri Naya. We'll start with Jamie Miller's sideboard, see if he has anything like Rest in Peace or something that's really going to turn things around for him here.
Yeah, this matchup's very difficult, especially if you don't have Rest in Peace or Pillar Flames. You need a way to kill Cartel Aristocrat very early. I love Pillar Flames in this matchup because you can deal with Doom Traveler, you can deal with Necromancer. Obviously, the Sacrifice Outlet is very important for VanMeter's deck, but Jamie doesn't have cards like Rest in Peace or Pillar Flames. He does have War Leader's Helix, he does have Mizium Mortars. I could see him bringing those cards in. He has 3 copies of Brave Revelation, 1 Blessed from the Sack, 1 Boros Charm. I don't really like those cards in this matchup. He does have 2 copies of Scavenging Ooze, which I could see coming in. I mean, it's another creature, but he has 4 copies of Unflinching Courage. Now, you might say Unflinching Courage isn't that great against a deck that has, 4 copies of Tragic Slip in it and probably other removal spells. But the fact is, I think you need that card in this matchup simply because of the games where they clog the ground. You need that ability to, 1, give your creature trample, and the lifelink helps favor your races. So even though Unflinching Courage, it might seem sort of counterintuitive to bring it in against a black deck, I think you actually need it in this matchup because of how bad the matchup is. So in my opinion, if I were Jamie, he's got 1 copy of Boros Charm and 3 Domri Raids. I would board those 4 cards out and I bring in 4 copies of Unflinching Courage. I also don't think that the Experiment one is very good in this matchup. I'd probably board those cards out and bring in 1 copy of Mizium Mortars. Maybe bring in the War Leader's Helix just as another way to go to the face. But in reality, I'll probably just bring in the Mizium Mortars and 2 Scavenging Oozes. Okay. Just as because I think Scavenging Ooze is probably just a better creature in general in this matchup than Experiment one. So if I was Jamie, that's probably where I'd be at. Maybe you want to bring in the 2 copies of Selesnya Charm because again, you don't really have a good way to deal with Falconwrath Aristocrat. And if the Aristocrat somehow gets a +1/+1 counter from one of the humans that it sacrificed, then you basically turn on your Selesnya Charms. So I think Selesnya Charm is probably actually an upgrade from Gorklan Rampager because again, Rampager in this matchup is generally just going to be, trample over.
Yeah, +4/+4 trample at a high percentage of the time.
Selesnya Charm can do the same thing if you need it, but it also backdoors into a way to potentially deal with either an Obsidat or a pumped up Falconwrath Aristocrat. So if I was Jamie, I'd probably board out 2 Rampagers for 2 Selesnya Charms, board out the Boros Charm and the Domri Raid for 4 Unflinching Courage, and board out 3 Experiment ones for Mizium Mortars and 2 Scavenging Ooze.
We take a look here at VanMeter's sideboard as both players are going to finish shuffling up here before game number 2. 3 Intangible Virtue, 2 Appetite for Brains, 2 Duress, 2 Mark of Mutiny, 2 Orzhov Charm, 2 Zealous Conscripts, an additional Sorin Lord of Innistrad to go with his 2 main deck, and additional Obsidian Ghost Council to go with his 2 main deck. Orzhov Charm is interesting here. The life loss part of it kind of stinks, but it is a removal spell, and looks like his deck, does VanMeter, has a little bit of trouble with Reckoner. Not a ton, but it would be nice to have additional removal spells, and especially if you think that your opponent is going to board in Unflinching Courage, being able to 2-for-1 them, and hopefully in response to Unflinching Courage. But, this is a removal spell I think you could use in this matchup. Again, you're playing against a deck that does have a lot of big creatures that you would like to have off the board. At the expense of life kind of stinks, but I think it's more important that they're actually just not on the table. The rest of the cards, Mark of Mutiny is okay, but I don't really think it's that great in this matchup. But we could use the Mark of Mutiny removal spell type effect, like having Aristocrat in play, Mark of Mutiny, your guy, kill it. which can promote bring Zell's conscription as well. I don't really like Sorin in this matchup very much because I think the creature that's going to make is fairly irrelevant. I think that Gather the Townsfolk also is pretty mediocre in this matchup. We saw it be great that game because of Fate Flower, but at the end of the day, it's just a couple of 1/1 tokens. So, I mean, is that a card that you would really want to leave in this matchup? I personally don't think I would want to. I think you can just kind of upgrade your deck a little bit, but you may disagree.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I honestly don't like Sorin or Lingering Souls in this matchup. I would board out those 6, and I actually really like the threaten effects. I like Mark Immunity, I like Zell's Conscript in this matchup, and I like Orzo's Charm because it's again, you just want creature removal because you don't want to lose to cards like Thunderman Hellkite. And if you're an experienced Aristocrat player, I think there are a lot of times, you see this mostly with Mono Red, where they board in Volcanic Strength against you as a way to sort of get past your blockers. But Infliction Courage is a similar strategy, and I think that VanMeter, knowing the deck list, knowing what Naya probably does, I think he probably would expect that maybe Infliction Courage would come in, so you want other ways to deal with those, a creature with Infliction Courage on it, and Mark, Orzo Charm, and Zell's Conscript, they all can do that given the right situation. So I would board in those 6 for the 2 Sorins and 4 Lingering Souls because, again, you saw in game 1, Sorin got basically stuck in his hand, and obviously Lingering Souls have bought him a lot of time, but in general, I think an Orzo Charm probably would have been just as good, or even being able to just threaten a guy and then sacrifice it on your turn. So I think you probably want to go in that direction, but we'll see what VanMeter decides to do.
See Jamie Miller going to be on the play this game, taking a look at his hand. Looks happy enough, so we'll be underway here for game number 2. Temple Garden to play on tap for Miller, going to knock him down to 18. Avacyn's Pilgrim, and a pretty good start. As you see in his hand, he does have Advent of the Worm and that War Leader's Helix that you mentioned, but Tragic Slip is going to slow him down as VanMeter's going to go to 18 as well.
Wow, it looks like he boarded in the Blasphemous Act too. I'm surprised by that. Maybe he's trying to backdoor into the Reckoner kill, but that's very difficult to pull off against Aristocrats.
Yeah.
In general, that card's not very good against them.
And we'll see Cartel Aristocrat get cast here, so that's one of the more important cards in this matchup.
So he has a Reckoner, so it looks like he does have Boros Reckoner and Blasphemous Act, so that is somewhat of a backdoor combo there. And let's see what VanMeter has here. Hopefully he has a creature to give it to make sure his Aristocrat is protected.
Mark Mutiny says, thank you very much. Counter on the Reckoner, in for 4, 5, 6, and you think he's going to sacrifice it?
I think so.
You think he's going to sacrifice? Okay.
And, you know, that's not the worst thing in the world for Jamie, because if he draws a land, he can actually War Leader's Helix the Cartel Aristocrat, because VanMeter doesn't have another creature to protect it. And again, getting rid of that sack outlet is very important. Yeah. So Jamie will take 2, but he'll gain 4 and deal with that very powerful Aristocrat. So.
And of course, Cartel Aristocrat cannot sacrifice itself.
Yes.
So he is going to have to allow Miller to gain 4 life. The big thing here for Miller, though, is that he's got Advent of the Worm in his hand. And again, Advent of the Worm isn't a card that's seeing a lot of play. So as a result, I would not be surprised to see VanMeter run into one of these. Unfortunately for Miller, as you can see in VanMeter's hand, he does have a Tragic Slip to be able to take care of the 5/5 Worm token at some point at the course of this game.
Yeah, it looks like he has a Slayer Stronghold, too, a card that we don't really see very often.
A 2 of in VanMeter's list, at least. Not sure if it's the same in Bronduin's or... the other person we saw playing Aristocrats earlier today.
Todd Anderson.
Todd Anderson, thank you. I'm not sure if they're all playing it, but we know Chris does have 2. He plays a Slayer Stronghold. What is he going to do this turn? Because he's got the options.
So Sorin comes down. Looks like we're going to see a Vampire.
Chris with all the tokens this weekend.
So it looks like he did leave in the Sorins.
And there's a Vampire. I'm going to pass it back.
And looks like Jamie drew, Dumber Raid. So it looks like he did keep in the Dumber Raids too. And just has to pass back.
Yep.
VanMeter, I wonder if, like you said, Advent of the Worm, not one of the more popular cards. So maybe he will catch him off guard with it. But again, you're really just going to be probably eating up a Vampire, and then it'll die to Tragic Slip anyway. So. Oh, well, wait a second.
You can pounce now.
Depending on how you tap. Oh, he does not have the Tragic Slip open.
Oh, he didn't pounce? You got to take advantage of that.
How do you not take advantage of that? Yeah, he doesn't even have a black up.
Wow.
What answers does he have to an Advent of the Worm? with
For one
Miller
white,
left.
he already played a land too. He played
He
Sacred
played his
Foundry.
land for turn. Yeah, I don't. Why would you? Because particularly because you want to be able to kill the 3/1 vigilance creature so that you can kill it and then make sure you kill Sorin on your turn. Because now Sorin won't necessarily come into play. Be able to kill Advent of the Worm token is only a 5/5 trampler. If VanMeter blocks with the vampire, it won't even trample over enough to kill the Sorin.
Yeah.
So it was very important for Jamie to actually block that vampire that turn. I'm surprised he didn't.
We're assuming that he did not block. I mean, from the thumbs up and the body language, it seemed like he didn't block.
Yeah, it seemed like this is end of the turn. I might be wrong. Maybe we're still on the blocker step. Are we still in the blocker step here?
Okay, it looks like
okay. So yeah.
I'm gonna say you got to pounce. I'm a little surprised. Yeah, you blocked the 3/1. I would think.
Yeah.
He's gonna block the 1/1. Interesting.
Maybe he's afraid of. Yeah, that just seems like a mistake. I can't imagine not wanting to block the larger creature.
Yeah. And as you mentioned, more importantly, the tapped one, so he can actually get after Sorin. Now he does have Domri in his hand, so he can fight something here, but there's a Strangleroot Geist off the top as well, and you see the Blasphemous Act in Miller's hand.
Yeah, so now I think you have to just attack Sorin.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have much of a choice. You have to get that thing off the table. It's close to its ultimate at this point.
I like attacking Sorin, playing Domri, and upticking it, trying to draw a creature here.
St. Miller decides again. His hand right now: Strangleroot Geist, Blasphemous Act, and Domri Rod. And has the Advent of the Worm token in play, and plenty of decisions to make.
Yeah, but Jamie's at 11 too, so he has to be kind of wary of his life totals and maybe make sure he doesn't expose himself too much. But again, I think you're okay with attacking here. I think you want to just try to get as many counters off of Sorin as possible.
Looks like he may be considering playing a Strangleroot Geist. Additionally, could be considering playing Domri and fighting as opposed to going up.
Yeah, I can't imagine wanting to cast Strangleroot Geist and just having it run into a Doom Traveler.
But the Strangleroot Geist is what is going to get played.
I think Jamie just has to accept the fact that he is not killing Sorin this turn. Like, that's just not happening.
Yeah. And I think this is an easy block here for Chris. I guess the order doesn't matter a ton how he wants to go about blocking it. Because like he's accomplishing what he wants to accomplish. I think the better block would be Strangleroot Geist on Doom Traveler on Geist and then Vampire on the other guy. But he's going to get a Spirit token nonetheless. I'm just going to pass the turn back. Strangleroot Geist is going to come back as a 3/2.
And let's see. Oh, so there's an Orzhov there. So a lot of options for Chris now. He can kill the worm, and then he can Tragic Slip the Strangleroot Geist, or he can actually the other way around to save himself some life, or he can get back a Doom Traveler if he wants to.
So get the bigger die on there for you guys at home, so you can see that Strangleroot Geist does have a counter on it. It is a 3/2. Undying has already taken place. You see VanMeter is going to make another 1/1 Vampire Sword, going to tick up to 2. And as you mentioned, he does have Tragic Slip and Orzhov Charm in his hand. Played his Slayer Stronghold already, so how does he want to navigate? Does he want to use these 2 removal spells right away, clear these guys out, and start attacking? If he does do that, so the issue here is he only got 1 black mana. So he can't do both in one turn.
Okay, yeah.
Because normally you assume that the Aristocrats, with it being 3-color mana, so good they can do everything.
In that case, why wouldn't you activate the Slayer Stronghold on your Vampire and just attack? Worst case scenario, Jake blocks with his Strangleroot Geist. They trade, and then you Tragic Slip the Worm.
Yeah. May have missed out on a free 3 points of damage, and more importantly, 3 lifelink.
Yeah, because like you said, he can only cast one of those spells in his hand. So, are you just going to double activate your Slayer Stronghold to hope that you can trade with the worm that way? Seems kind of odd, especially with Jamie at 11. Seems like you can try to be a little more aggressive here.
Do you want to cut his draw steps if you can? You see Miller taking a look at that Domri, still that Blasphemous Act, and he drew a land for the turn. I believe it was a Sacred Foundry. See Miller trying to figure out how can I get that Sorin off the table. That's the thing causing me the most problems right now. Blasphemous Act right now would cost 5 mana, so it does have the necessary mana to cast it, but not the ideal scenario to do so.
Yeah, VanMeter definitely wants that Sorin to stay in play because he doesn't really have that much gas left in his hand. He just has 2 removal spells. He wants to try to close this game out as quickly as he can. So wants to make sure that Sorin stays in play. Let's see how he navigates this turn. Is he going to use an Orzhov Charm? I still like getting Domri into play. I don't know why you wouldn't want to just play the Domri uptick it. Maybe you'll get another Strangler Geist and it'll make this attack even easier.
Yeah.
You can get a Strangler Geist, you can get a Rampager, possibly.
Yep.
I think you want to play a Domri and uptick it. And again, you could fight. I just don't see the value in fighting.
I don't see much value in fighting either, because it does turn on a card like Tragic Slip if your opponent does have one. There's I feel like there's a lot that can go wrong if you're not fighting. Because if your opponent's not playing something, if VanMeter, if I'm Miller and VanMeter has 2 cards in his hand, what can those 2 cards be that he's not putting on the board? Like, he's not sandbagging a Blood Artist or something. Like, it's got to be removal. I mean, there's a chance it could be like a card like Restoration Angel or something, even though that's not a card that the Aristocrat typically plays, but you see a fight is going to take place here.
And this is going to be terrible for Jamie, because basically what's going to happen here is Dominraid. Yeah, there's no reason to pump, right?
I don't think there's a reason for VanMeter, to use a removal spell.
So he fought the Strangler Geist. I got it.
Yeah, so this goes perfect because VanMeter activates Slayer Stronghold, makes his vampire into a 3-power creature. It's going to trade the Strangler Geist. Orzhov Charm is going to take care of the Advent of the Worm. A little surprised to see not VanMeter use that instead of Tragic Slip in this situation.
I think maybe he's trying to conserve his mana a little bit.
Okay. And to be fair, VanMeter's life total is very high.
Yeah. The main thing is he wants to make sure that Sorin stays in place. So now he has plenty of gas to work with. Jamie doesn't have anything in play, and the Sorin, the Dominraid is going to die this turn.
Yeah, because now Sorin is going to make a vampire. VanMeter can actually get to work here with Slayer Stronghold, give that token haste. Now it's a 3/1 that has a life link. And he can still leave up Tragic Slip. That Dominraid you mentioned is certainly going to die this turn in one way or the other. Might see a double Slayer activation here.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. So this is going to be +4/+0. It already has lifelink and vigilance. Spirit token is going to take down that Domri. Not the first time we've seen Tom Martell take one of those out. And VanMeter is going to move up to 26.
Yeah, so if there's a Rampager or a Strangler Geist on top of Jamie's deck, he's going to really regret not upticking it.
Sunpetal Grove. And he is going to extend the hand, realizing that he's too far behind to come back, and Blasphemous Act probably never going to get active at this point. So Chris VanMeter is going to win this match 2-0 over Jamie Miller. The Aristocrats are going to move on to 5-1 in this 9-round Standard Open, while Domri Naya moves down to 4-2 and will not be making the top 8 this evening.
Well,